Let's talk about labor hoarding. If you haven't heard that concept, it's a strategy that high growth companies have used and many are using today to survive and thrive as the economy slows down and picks back up again, or that happens in their market. So, what is labor hoarding? It's a strategic decision by businesses to retain more employees than immediately necessary, even during times when demand might be lower. So, it's an approach that not only encompasses cutting staff, but also sometimes cutting and then going ahead and hiring, strategically hiring top talent, particularly going out and then hiring proven leaders and industry experts, even if they can only get them on a fractional basis. And we'll talk about that as we continue down through this. Companies, though, they adopt this strategy to avoid the costs and delays associated with rehiring when business picks back up again, ensuring that they have skilled labor on hand. The rationale behind labor hoarding goes beyond mere employee retention. It's about being prepared for future opportunities without downtime of scaling workforce capabilities from scratch or a really low level. It's a proactive approach, and it can be crucial, especially in sectors where competition for top talent or specific roles is fierce and the cost of turnover and getting people up to speed is high. That's one of the things I find so often when companies are evaluating reductions in force, which does have to happen. They drastically undercount the resources that it's going to take to ramp back up on the other side. They just assume, hey, we can cut 3 product managers, and when we need to go hire 3 product managers, we can, of course, just hire them again. Well, that's not the case, especially in today's economy. And there's a big difference between hiring a top 5, top 1% product manager or marketer or salesperson and hiring somebody that's even in the center of that bell curve or somebody that's like in 30% of the categorization. So what's the importance in today's economy and this climate? Well, things continue to change. There's market uncertainty and things are changing very fast with AI and a bunch of things. So labor hoarding is particularly relevant today. For employees and companies that are at high growth B2B and B2C sectors, that's why you're watching this, so that you can guide the conversations at your companies and bring up this topic. Economic downturns and uncertain market conditions, they can prompt a reassessment of workforce strategies. And we all know that has to happen. If revenues are going to shrink by 20%, companies have to stay in existence to continue being able to pay for the employees and their families of the people that they would like to retain. So this reassessment does need to happen. But by maintaining a larger workforce than they otherwise could cut down to, companies preserve their ability to capitalize quickly in market recovery, and therefore they maintain or even enhance a competitive edge. The key here is really thinking about temporally time. Instead of just thinking about short term, making sure that the true costs and opportunities over the medium and long term are also considered, and it's frequently not. So this strategy is not just about having more employees, it's about strategic readiness and controlled risk. It ensures that businesses are not caught in cycles of endlessly hiring, rehiring, laying off, which can be not only costly, but disrupt your organizational momentum. Instead, labor hoarding on specific positions allows companies to leapfrog competitors when favorable conditions return. And it also aligns closely with the goals that leadership should have when they're purpose-driven beyond just the immediate financial goals or gains in this month or this quarter. And instead, for those people that are focused on the medium and long-term growth of companies. So there are a few different strategic values of labor hoarding. The first of those, let's talk through maintaining institutional knowledge. One of the most significant advantages of labor hoarding is the preservation of institutional knowledge. In any organization, the cumulative experience and expertise of the employees, that's invaluable. And it frankly acts as the backbone for the operation's success. By retaining employees during downtimes and these downturns, companies can protect this knowledge base and ensure that critical skills and experiences are not lost to competitors. This retention is particularly crucial in industries where operational nuances, deep product knowledge, deep customer knowledge play pivotal roles in maintaining or gaining market leadership. So the risk of losing seasoned personnel to competitors who might offer more stability or opportunities can be mitigated through labor hoarding and not just keeping people. You have to tell people what you're doing and the intention behind it because they're going to feel uncertain. So this strategy ensures that a company maintains its core competencies and industry insights that have been honed over years and can be very difficult to replace, keeps also that experience from going to your competitors. Now, another thing that it does is Frankly, it enhances employee loyalty and productivity. Those two things go together. Labor hoarding significantly impacts employee morale and loyalty. In uncertain economic times, job security becomes paramount concerns for many workers. I'm keenly aware I'm not just employing, say, 5 people on my team. If they have families behind them, I'm providing for their families as well. So they're thinking about that. You as a company should be aware that they're thinking about that. So companies that stand by their employees during these periods are likely to foster a sense of loyalty and trust. This loyalty translates into higher productivity levels in more engaged workforce when the market conditions improve. And it also encourages those people to think about how they can help things change for the company sooner. So employees that feel secure in their positions are more likely to invest in their roles, level up their own skills, and contribute to a positive work environment. They're also less likely to seek other opportunities. And that reduces turnover rates, even when times are good, when you really can't afford to lose people. And it helps you avoid the associated costs of hiring and training new staff. Moreover, a loyal workforce can be a powerful brand advocate, both with your customers, but also when you're recruiting new employees. So I want you to think about that. Thus, labor hoarding is not merely about a defensive strategy, but it's about a proactive strategy to strengthen the internal dynamics of the organization while also safeguarding external competitive advantages. By balancing the short-term costs with medium and long-term benefits, companies can turn potential economic challenges into opportunities for growth and increased market share. Now, how do you implement labor hoarding? First of all, you're watching this video, so you may need to send this to somebody on your team so that you can spark the conversation. This conversation, one, I've been part of it at a number of companies, the people teams and HR teams, finance teams, accounting, they're all aware of the concept, even if they haven't called it labor hoarding, but I've never heard the concept come up from them. They're usually very frequently looking at the short-term analysis only, revenues and costs, and say, hey, if we believe from a projection perspective that you said we should have a net revenue of this, well, to maintain that, we need to cut 10%, 15% of the force. They're not thinking about the short or about the medium term and long term, only that very short term. So somebody needs to bring it up and give them permission to come in and start talking about the true cost of rehiring. The first thing is you need to think about criteria for choosing when to hoard labor. You don't always just need to keep more people than otherwise you could cut. So deciding when to implement labor hoarding requires a nuanced approach. You need to consider several criteria factors. First, the financial health of the company. It's got to be robust enough to support a larger workforce without jeopardizing the fiscal stability. If I think I'm going to cut to 10% to maybe lower, labor hoarding would have me cut to only 5 or 7% coming off the head count. I'm never going to do that if it's going to risk the remaining 93% of the company and the company itself. Secondly, leaders need to evaluate the predictability of demand recovery in your specific markets, which can vary widely between industries and economic climate. It's also going to vary different between different regions of the world. Another crucial aspect is the strategic importance of specific roles within the organization. Not all positions contribute equally to the company's core competencies and competitive edge. So identifying roles that are critical for long-term success, that's the key to making informed decisions about which positions to be prioritized from a labor hoarding perspective. Now, the other thing to think about here is managing costs. While labor hoarding can offer significant strategic benefits, it also comes with increased operational costs. So to manage these effectively, companies should consider strategies like cross-training employees to fill multiple roles. This not only enhances your workforce's versatility, but it also helps reduce idle time among employees, ensuring that everyone can contribute meaningfully, even during periods of reduced workload. I've seen quite frequently companies where the customer success team has more time when things start to slow down. And so they're able to step in and help the product team or the marketing team based with their knowledge and skill set. Another strategy involves creating custom plan for different parts of the organization based on the specific needs of the company's long-term goals. For example, rather than implementing an across-the-board reduction and then increase of staff, you need to evaluate the projections for the next 12 to even 48 months and adjust the workforce across individual teams accordingly. This should be a targeted approach that allows companies to focus on retaining strong leaders and critical knowledge sources. Frankly, it's a lot easier to hire in some roles and functions than in others. So I want you to think about maximizing the readiness for future growth. Now, in many cases, internal HR or people teams, I find that this is where they benefit from the perspective of an outside industry expert. You don't need to go to a McKinsey or a Bain, PwC. They've all written about this concept. I do find it's often helpful to bring a single person as an expert to help offer impartial insights and guide the strategic discussions around this workforce management without the biases that even that people teams and finance teams often have with people at the company. By involving both internal stakeholders, the people that are on those teams I mentioned, in every functional area, and an external advisor, companies can craft a more balanced and effective labor hoarding strategy that's going to align both with immediate financial constraints with the long-term growth objectives. Another really good reason to bring in another good reason to bring in a good external expert here is that I find very helpful when you're having conversations with the board to allow somebody else to lay the case out and then allow the people teams, the finance teams, the product, marketing, sales, allow them to help back up their individual positions and having that guided but presented initially by one external person. So how about a couple case studies here? Let's actually walk through 3 very quickly. Now, I'm not going to name names here, but I'm going to give you as much knowledge that I can about who they are. So in the tech industry, innovation is critical. Rapid adaptation is crucial. One notable company, everybody would know the name if I mention it, they demonstrated this effectiveness of labor hoarding. During the significant economic or last downturn, this organization chose to retain almost all of his core development team. They did pare down people that were on the bridge of underperforming, but they even went out and recruited some additional top tier talent and key growth strategy positions. On the marketing, the sales, and product management team, they looked at who they had in the team. They used that as a time to cut down on a few of the people, but only after they identified new people to come into the company to help them start to ramp as they knew things were going to slow down, so they would be prepared when the company and market came back. This decision was initially met with skepticism due to the increased financial burden during that period of reduced product demand. The industry they were in was shrinking. But by maintaining the skilled workforce and telling people what they were doing, the company was able to focus on product improvements and innovation so that they were prepared when the market eventually rebounded, which happened sooner than they thought. They were able to be among the first to launch new software solutions that allowed them to significantly outpace their competitors who had pared down their teams as much as possible. So the strategic labor hoarding not only allowed them to maintain operational continuity, but it also played a pivotal role to allow them to capture significantly more market share post-recession. Now, also they were able to look at meticulously managing financial planning and reallocating resources because they had a conversation across the company. They looked at where they could cut costs, and they went to their teams and said, this is what we need to do, or we would like to keep this percentage of people, but we have to find dollars somewhere. And so the teams, even the individual contributor level, was able to come up with ideas to save budget that frankly wasn't a great ROI, but leadership never would have known it unless they had an open conversation. They also implemented skill enhancement programs and internal projects that kept teams productive and motivated so that instead of having potential idle time, they were able to have people start investing in the company's future. Now, an alternative to this is a mid-market company that I helped a number of years ago. When they were concerned about the market and that it was going to shrink in the next year, they cut. And they cut significantly and pretty much just across the board, the same percentage. And 2 things happened. The market and their sales did not shrink nearly as much as they had planned. This left the company struggling to meet demand, and frankly, it caused burnout across thousands of employees as they attempted to keep up with because revenues had fallen that much. And then as the market began to improve, the company found that hiring top marketing, growth, product, and strategy was really difficult. Hiring for key leads was taking way longer than they anticipated, and it was costing significantly more than was previously anticipated. So the result, they ended up hiring, let's say, more than 8 VPs or above that did not meet the skill and leadership level that the company was hoping for. And because they frankly needed butts in the seat is what they thought. And maybe they did, but they're still recovering from that lack of leadership today. It was the wrong hires, and It just takes time to recover from that. Now, one quick example from a manufacturing firm, similarly, a manufacturing firm that I know, they had a temporary slump in orders for its products, and they decided to downsize too much of their skilled labor force. They did manage to reduce risk in the short term. Instead of keeping the exact net margin that we had before, and that 10% of the headcount reduction work got us there, they ended up cutting to only 6%. Their net revenues started to shrink pretty significantly. They were still in the black, though. They hoarded labor by retaining more of their employees and focusing on training and cross-functional education. This manufacturing firm, they anticipated that when demand returned, the ramp-up time would be minimal for them due to their already trained and ready workforce. The foresight paid dividends sooner than when an unexpected surge in orders came as the economy began to recover. Thanks to its retained workforce, the firm was able to increase production volume quickly without the lag time associated with hiring and training new people. The rapid response gave them an edge over competition who was still struggling with staffing issues. Instead, they ended up leading to significant gain in customer satisfaction, therefore higher market share. All of these cases illustrate why labor hoarding poses short-term financial challenges, but also long-term benefits that can often outweigh those costs. Now, by keeping the teams intact and strategically planning for future demands, companies, your company, can leverage labor hoarding as a potent tool for sustaining growth and competitive advantage. Now, there's some challenges and pitfalls to labor hoarding, so let's talk through some potential downsides. Despite its benefits, labor hoarding, it's not without challenges. There's going to be difficult conversations to even have this conversation. So one of the most significant issues is just increased operational costs. There are only so many dollars. Maintaining a larger workforce during periods of reduced demand can strain financial resources, particularly for companies with already tight cash flows. There is also a risk of harboring unproductive staff members. So that can lead to inefficiencies and a diluted work culture if it's not managed properly. Moreover, this strategy demands a high degree of foresight and market understanding. Misjudgments about market recovery or demand can lead to prolonged periods of a financial burden without the anticipated payoff. So this misalignment might result in difficult decisions later, having to come back and do a deeper cut later. And so you don't want to have to come back and have the discussion because that could hurt. Not that you may not have to do one, but if you have to cut deeper than you otherwise would have, it's going to just decimate employee morale. So you need to be open and transparent with people. It does have some downside. I find it's a balancing, and I say with the balancing act, just as we're looking for work-life balance, balance is a verb. It is not a state of being. So finding the right balance between too much and too little labor hoarding, it requires careful strategic planning and an assessment. Companies need to regularly analyze the market conditions, financial stability, and workforce productivity and adjust their strategies accordingly. This balancing act is crucial to avoiding the pitfalls associated with overstaffing while still capitalizing on the advantages of having a ready and capable workforce. Effective labor hoarding also involves clear communication with the organization about the reasons for and the benefits of the strategy. Transparency helps in managing employee expectations and maintaining morale during uncertain times. I find during uncertain times, people's minds will wander that much more and they will assume that. So you need to be transparent with them. Additionally, it's essential for companies to foster a culture of productivity and continuous improvement among the people that are kept to ensure that all team members remain engaged and contribute value regardless of the external economic pressures. So as we start to wrap up here, and I'll recap in just a minute, but while labor hoarding can be a strategic advantage, it must also be implemented with precision and adaptability. So companies that succeed in this approach are those that manage to strike the fine balance between preserving their workforce and maintaining operational efficiency. It's a great time to evaluate operational efficiency. These companies, they treat their employees as investments in the future, not just costs to be managed. People are not cogs. They're not machines. They don't act that way, and the processes in your company don't respond to them. So ultimately, this supports both the immediate survival of the company and medium and long-term growth objectives. So as I kind of recap here, throughout this discussion, explore the concept of labor hoarding. That's a strategic choice to retain and possibly even increase staff during periods of reduced demand. This approach allows you to preserve invaluable institutional knowledge while enhancing employee loyalty, which can translate into higher productivity and competitive edge in the market. We've also talked about and examined how effective labor hoarding can be, but how it requires careful consideration of several factors, including financial health, the company market forecasts, and the strategic importance of individual roles. Also, implementing labor hoarding effectively entails managing increased operational costs. And so it can put a little more of a burden on your finance and people team, while maintaining that workforce engagement through strategies like cross-training and developing custom plans for different organizations and sectors. Now, these actions help balance financial implications with long-term benefits. So there's a huge opportunity there. It sets the stage for rapid scaling when market conditions turn favorable. What do you do after watching this? I think there's three things I want you to do. First, I encourage you, especially those of you in leadership roles with high growth B2B companies and sectors, to assess your current workforce strategies critically, even before any conditions start to slow down. Consider whether labor hoarding could serve your long-term growth ambitions by allowing you to quickly capitalize on market recoveries without the downtime associated with ramping up the conditions from a diminished workforce, and have that conversation now and start thinking today. Then for a deeper dive into the subject and more detailed guidance, I've written a long article about this with some specific case studies as well. I'm going to link that in the description. I encourage you to read that full article, the guide on labor hoarding, and it's on my website. It's free. The resources it offers and some links to it offer some extended insights and strategies to help you implement this approach within your organization and do so effectively. And then lastly, I want your feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. So please, in the comments, share your experiences or concerns about labor hoarding in your sector. What do you think the holdups could be if you brought this up to your leadership team? I'd love if we could start a conversation to learn from each other to better navigate these challenges and also potentially these rewarding strategic decisions. Your insights, your questions, your pushback not only enrich my knowledge, but the community of everyone else here. You're starting to see some of the newsletters that I'm sharing the best comments with everybody else. So I want to hear your thoughts and your pushback on this topic. So please leave them in the comments.